Hello and welcome to First Impressions. Welcome to Model Kit Stuff. We're looking at this, the Hobby Boss A-26B Invader in 1:32 scale. This is a big old kit. Can't wait to take a look. Welcome to Model Kit Stuff, where you'll find all of this. Right then, let's start by having a look at the box. The box is pretty huge and we've got this lovely bit of artwork which shows a couple of invaders having a go at some, I'm guessing, somewhere in Germany or occupied Europe. It's surprisingly not a very colourful image though. Somehow everything seems to be the same colour. But anyway, it tells us that we've got a Hobby Boss kit, that it's an A-26B Invader. It's 1:32 scale. I've not got many kits in that scale, just a small handful. And that it's age 14 above, which suggests we might have photo etch in it. On one side of the box, we can see the two paint schemes that are included in the kit, along with a very small amount of photo etch and an image of the decal sheet. So I don't know, should we have more than two paint schemes at 1:32 scale? I think maybe we should. There's two sides of the box pretty much copy what's on the front, but it does give us our kit number, which is Hobby Boss kit number 83213. Then on the final side, we've got another image. So we do appear to have three paint options and a little bit of history, and that is pretty much it. So let's start off, as I always do, with a look at the instructions.
Right then, instructions. This is really interesting for me because I've only ever built Hobby Boss ships before and one truck. So I've never built a Hobby Boss aircraft. This is my first Hobby Boss aircraft kit, so I don't really know what we're in for. On the front here, we've got some please read before you continue instructions, and then we've got our key there at the bottom. We've got some notes on applying decals, and then as we turn over the page, we have our sprue map, which doesn't have, oh yeah, it does have numbers on. No, has numbers on some and not on others, so it's not usable for cross-referencing your part numbers, but it does mean we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 plastic sprues, plus photo etch, plus 2 decal sheets, plus what I'm guessing will be rubber tyres. So yeah, quite a bit to go through, but actually doesn't look too heavy from a part count point of view, does it? So turning over, step 1. And I never know why they do this. They put a silhouette of an aeroplane through there, and it says step, and then it's got the silhouette of an aeroplane. And on the ship kits, they put a silhouette of a ship. I never understand why they do that. You know what it is. Just put the one there so you can clearly read it. Anyway, so we seem to be starting with the gear bay. I'm guessing it's the front gear bay, because this is... for me, this is possibly a tail sitter, so we have to be a bit careful of this. So it's telling us to paint it in interior green, and it's giving us a couple of reference numbers, Mr. Hobby ones. Same with the sides. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces making up the bay there. You can see that being built up. Then we've got some supports going in, so that's all very good. So I'm guessing that the floor pan of the cockpit is going to sit on top of that, and that's why they've built that up first. Then we've got the seats being built up. So 1, 2, 3, 4 plastic parts, then a couple of photo etch parts, and it does say make 2 on both sides. So the instructions are nice and clear. The images are spaced out, they're in boxes, so it's easy to follow. Nicely laid out instructions, actually. Then we're building the steering columns. Then we've got the all the controls. We've got separate controls there, and some form of adjustment wheel. Then we're installing all of those bits that we've built up onto this floor pan. It's telling us the seats and the steering column should be flat black. It's not telling me what colour the floor pan should be. So that's a little bit inconsistent already, isn't it? Right, okay. It tells you there. Right, okay. So I've gone that way, and actually there's a bit that way. So if you follow the instructions in sequence, a little confusing. Well, it certainly confused me. We're painting it flat back. Then we're putting the pedals in, which I'm guessing are black too. Then we're putting in the control boxes, and we've got a photo etch box that needs to be bent by the looks of it. Then we're doing these bits we just talked about. Then we're adding the console with all the dials and what have you on. Then we're putting the rear bulkhead in, which looks quite detailed, and the back piece for behind the dials there. So yeah, okay, all makes sense. Step 6, and I'm not quite sure what that is. Is it bomb aiming equipment, maybe, because there's a seat going in there, so possibly. But it's a sub-assembly, I can't see it being fitted here. Then we're building up 10 bombs, which are 3 pieces, 2 sides and a single tail piece. Then we've got a bulkhead being built up. It has 1 part in it. We paint it all interior green. And then we're installing it into the fuselage, which is also painted interior green. Though interestingly, it's sort of saying from there, but not this bit, which is clearly detailed and where the cockpit's going. So I imagine it's the same colour. Maybe we'll see a bit later. It does have us installing the bombs, and correctly telling you to do them olive drab. Right, okay, and then we've got this bulkhead going in and the cockpit going in, so they haven't referenced the colour in there, but I imagine it's interior green as well. Then we've got a rear bulkhead going in there and some panels with some form of equipment, probably for opening the bomb bay doors. Doesn't tell you you've got options there though, so I don't know whether we've got options on open and close. We'll see. Step 10, and we're installing more bits and pieces, including the little, what I think is the bomb aimer's position, which is upside down, but we built that earlier, and some other bulkheads. It's a little bit, if I turn it that way, it makes a little bit more sense to me. I know it's upside down, but actually the parts are the right way around. Yeah, so it's bulkheads and what looks like radio equipment being installed there, which we can see being built up. And then as we turn that over, we've got another bulkhead of bombs going in, and a bulkhead there that's going to go into the cockpit area. Then we put the 2 fuselage halves together. We've got them upside down because of the landing gear there, I suspect. So we've got all the interior built by step 11. Then step 12, we're building up bomb bay doors, and then we add, landing gear doors, and then we're also installing bomb bay doors. We've got what looks like a little periscope. I'm guessing that's what it is, and some antennas or something, and not quite sure what they all are. No doubt that little tailpiece has a lamp in it by the looks of it, and building up the wheel. So we've got a 2-part hub, which is going over what I suspect is a rubber tyre. It says small tyre. It's bound to be rubber, isn't it? Okay, and then we've got a little roof piece going in. So you could leave that loose, actually, and so you can lift it off and see him inside better. But certainly there's some clear parts here. So those little panels on the side are glass, and I think that and that is glass as well, but not 100% sure. Okay, so step 15, we're building up this little rotating turret and gun. So what I thought was a bomb aimer's position, and maybe it is possibly the gunner's position for this turret, and it might not be the bomb aimer at all. Don't know enough about it to be able to say, but certainly where we built a seat and stuff, it's now underneath that turret, so I suspect it's a gunner's position more than anything. Maybe he did both, don't know. Then we've got some more little fittings going on the outside of the fuselage, and we're putting the canopy glazing in place. Okay, so that's all good. And then we've got the nose being installed, which we're making here. So we seem to have a bulkhead where we mount all of these guns, and then we push them through. Now, it's not telling us what colour to do the guns. So again, a little bit inconsistent with the paint instructions. It is telling us we need 150 grams of weight to go in there. So, okay, interesting. Then I thought it might be a tail sitter. Right, step 17, we're building up the engines. Now, somebody has told me that the engines are incorrect. They're not the right engines. Don't know enough about it, but they do look like engines. And then we're putting the cowls on, putting the propellers on, which are single piece, which is a little surprising maybe at this scale. But anyway, 18, we're building up bombs again, this time 2 bombs. Then we're making up the remaining wheels, same process. Then we're building up the landing gear left and right in its bay. So that gets us to step 22, where we complete the gear bay, and then it gets installed into the engine nacelle, and then we put the doors on, and then we're repeating that process for the other side. We are nearly at the end here. Step 24, make hole. So just like Trumpeter do, and just like the Hobby Boss do on their ships, they're telling us to make hole, but not telling us what diameter to drill it. So that's not ideal. So what I tend to do is err on the side of caution, go a little smaller, and then open it up if I need to with things like that. But yeah, so it's saying options, but it's not telling us what those options are for. So you're going to have a look at the paint options, I think, and see what effect that has on ordnance and where that ordnance is slung. But you seem to be drilling out these 3 holes regardless, and then either those 2 or these 3. So I guess it's to do with drop tanks or something, but it's not clear there what the option's for. You know, a little image to say, a little silhouette with the ordnance arrangement would just help you understand what you're doing here. Right, okay. So yeah, see, it's guns. Right. Okay. So that's why we were doing. Right. Okay. So what have we got? 3 pins, 3 pins, 2 pins, 3 pins, 3 pins, or right. So it's either 2 sets of guns or 1 set of guns and a bomb. So you're either putting one of those in and one of those, or both of those and not that, and that's the option. So the option is those 2 parts there. Right, clear now. Wasn't clear when they were asking you to make that decision though. So building up the guns, installing the wingtip lights, the flaps, and the engine nacelles there all been put in. We've got a little lamps going on the inside there, and some form of divider, which I guess is for the air intake. Be interesting to see if we've got a nice grille on there or not. Step 27, we're just repeating what we've just seen for the other side. Step 28, and we're installing the engines into the wings before we've put the wings on the fuselage. That really worries me, because if they don't fit and you've got to do filling, the likelihood of you knocking those and things is quite high. So I absolutely wouldn't install those until the wings are in place. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the idea that the landing gear's all in before you put the wings in place, to be honest. So might want to look at how that comes together and change that build flow a little bit. But anyway, that's what they have us do. And then in step 29, we are installing the wings, which are basic biscuit fittings, not spars. So you're going to have to be really Johnny on the spot with your geometry, because they can sag and all sorts when you've got these tiny little fittings. Yeah, we'll have a look at the parts in a minute and see that. We've got a single piece tail, a two-piece tail that's then installed, and then we've got the tail sections going in, and a little separate lamp, which I'm guessing is a clear part. So 29 steps in all to build our 1/32 scale A-26B Invader. Not a lot of parts involved. I've got to be honest. Not massively detailed in terms of parts, but I'm guessing all the bits that you can see are okay. So let's have a look at the paint instructions. Now, like I say, I've not built a Hobby Boss kit before, aircraft kit, I should say. So I don't know if their instructions for aircraft are any better than their instructions for ships. With ships, you basically get this sheet and put it in the bin and do your own research. With aircraft, what I've seen, the bits I know, and I don't know much about aircraft, they have appeared to get the colours right in terms of the bombs and things. Now, whether the internals were actually aluminium instead of green, I don't know. Whether the cockpit colours were all that black, I don't know. So I suggest you do your research and double check. So again, exterior colours, don't really know, but it sort of looks right, doesn't it? So we've got at the bottom there, we've got a call out for Mr. Hobby, Ackerson, Vallejo, Model Master, Tamiya, Humbrol. So with only Mr. Hobby and the acrylic version of theirs doing the full range of colours. So they're suggesting that Tamiya don't have a tyre black. Is that right? Not sure. Vallejo absolutely definitely do. So why that's not in there, I don't know. So yeah, choose your paint system, do your research. It does show us the decal positions quite nicely though. So looks. I'm saying that, yeah, so the numbers are the decals and the letters are the paints. That's right. Okay. Doesn't appear to have very much in the way of stencils for an aircraft of this scale. That looks pretty poor, actually. Right then. Let's see. We've got a couple of stencils going on here. This is marking scheme 2. Doesn't tell us anything about it, so I don't know where this aircraft is or what country this aircraft is or anything like that, or where it's stationed. Same with 3, it's just 3 different options, so the information is pretty poor. Yeah, not impressed with the paint instructions at all. Let's have a look at decals now. So decals come in 2 sheets. So we've got this main sheet which is covering off all the markings, and then for some reason we've got a bit of nose art on a separate sheet. So let's have a quick look at that. and they have taped down the tissue paper on that. So I'm just going to... Okay, so yeah, it's got quite a bit of film around it, but it's not too bad. Feels a little thick. I can feel it under my finger. You've got a lump where it is, but the register looks good. Bit dark maybe, but not sure. And I just cut the tape on this one as well. So nice, clear, vibrant decals. Register is definitely good. Doesn't tell us who's made them, so possibly themselves. They're not too thick. They're not like Tamiya thick or anything like that. We do have a good bit of carrier film around them, so some people might want to trim some of that off, though it does look like it's hollow in the centre of the D's and what have you. So yeah, not too shabby. My only concern is, where are all the stencils? There's tons of decals missing from this. Yeah, not overwhelmed. Okay, photo etch. There is not much in the way of photo etch. These bits we saw being used as struts on the seats. So that's that. And then we've got one box that we build up here. So that is all the photo etch required for the kit. So I'm not going to get close up on that. But yeah. Okay, and it will have on the back of the photo etch, it'll have little grooves to help you fold it. So yeah, that's all good, but there's not much. So building it shouldn't be too big an issue. And then we've got the tyres. So we've got 3 rubber tyres. First thing I'm going to say is I don't really like the colour. They're not really a tyre colour. They're sort of a pure black colour. So yeah, there's a bit of a seam running down the centre of this one. It's not too bad, and at least it's not got lots of flappy, flashy stuff you've got to try and sand away. But this will need a sand all the way around anyway, which I don't mind doing because it gives it a bit of wear on the... but we've got no sidewall detail, and same on this, although the seam is less evident on this. Yeah, no sidewall detail. They're a bit toy-like. Yeah, you probably want to see if you can find some resin replacements, because they're definitely not the worst ones I've ever seen, but they're not brilliant. I mean, many modelers may well be happy with them, but I personally would want to change those out. But yeah, that's our tyres done. So I'll just bag those up, and then we can get on with the parts. Now, all of the parts come individually wrapped, as far as I can see, in heat sealed bags. I've just opened this one so I could talk about the bag. So everything's got its own bag, which I like, which is great because you can label up the bag and keep it in the bag, in the box while you're building if you wish. But if we take that out, what have we got here? I'm doing this in the reverse order that they came out of the box so I can put them back in the same order. So this is sprue C, and we've got 2, I'm guessing, lower wings. And the detail on there is quite nice. The surface has a very gentle, rough texture to it. So it's not completely smooth. But yeah, the rivet detail and what have you, all very nice. Our flaps are 2 halves. So we've got the 2 female halves there. And then we've got, I'm not quite sure what that is. And then we've got a bulkhead, and it's got a bottle on there, and lots of pipe work and what have you, which is all relatively nicely done. You can do some things to make them look a little bit more realistic, or maybe even chisel them off and replace them with wire if you want, because you've got the You can see the direction, so you can make them and then remove them and stick them on if you wish. At this scale, that's very, very doable. But what you've got there is quite acceptable for many. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. So let's take some photos at the end of each, and then you can have a closer look. Sprue B, and it's the sort of the mirror half of what we've just seen. We've got the upper wings there, again nicely done, and the riveting is nice and crisp, as is the panel lines. I can't see any sink, I can't see any flash, so yeah, that all looks very nice. We've got the male halves of the flaps there, and then we've got some bulkheads, one of which has got sort of half a bottle, and it would have been better at this scale to have done that as a separate item, so it could have been a proper formed bottle. I'm sure it wasn't half a bottle. And we've got some boxes there with switches on. I'm a bit surprised at how many parts have been moulded in, given the scale, to be honest, and the cost of the kit. So, right, okay. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. I don't see any issues. A couple of smaller sprues. Again, these have come in their own individual bags, and we've got slide moulding going on here. So we've got like a little box which has got all sorts of details on all four sides. So that suggests to me that they've done four-sided slide moulding by the looks of it. So yeah, that's nicely done. Then we've got some separate unit there, which has got slide moulding to create the opening for the peg there, and then we've got slide moulding to add side detail onto the seats. And the seats look a bit basic, but you've got to remember there is a separate cushion to go on. But the backs look a bit basic as well, but maybe that's right, I don't know. And then we've got these openings on each end of these boxes which have been slide moulded. So a lot of slide moulding all on this one sprue, and here we've got really delicate openings. So it's some very nice moulding practice. You've got some big ejector pin marks under the seats, which you will have to deal with, even though you probably won't see them. They're a bit flashy, so you may see the flash if you're not careful. So yeah, that's all very nice. And then this one again is slide moulded. You can tell because the sprue is flat where the mould slides in. And we've got the openings for the guns on these blisters that go under the wings. Then we've got on the end, we've got the turret there, which has got some nice fastener and rivet detail. And then we've got the landing gear, which has been slide moulded as well, to allow these openings to go in. So rather than doing them in two halves, they've moulded them in one piece and slide moulded them, and they look quite nice for that. I can see there's some seam to clean up, but there's no other issues. Detail is nice and crisp. It's some really nice moulding. Yeah. Yeah, no issues with any of that. Sprue E, and we've got tail parts here. We've got what look like some form of radiator air intake grill, maybe, although there's no grill work on there, so possibly bulkheads. That's inside the cockpit. We can see all the little switches and what have you. Nicely moulded, nice and crisp. Same here, we've got a little intake part which again has some switches or lights or something like that, indicators. Bulkhead with visible wiring, and nicely done surface detail. There's no canning or anything like that, it's just straight, so it's fairly straightforward from that point of view. All the flaps are 2 parts, and then if I flip it over, you can see we've got the I believe this to be the inside of the engine nacelle landing gears. So we've got nice rib construction detail there. Even on the sides we've got some, not slide moulded, but they've done a nice job of it anyway. Yeah, again, no real issues. Yeah. Sprue F, and we've got more flaps. We seem to have more flaps than we have space for flaps, so I'm guessing that we might have some different options here, different shapes, which means we've probably got different variations coming out at different points in time. So yeah, again, all sort of nicely done. Yeah, I mean, there's no issues whatsoever. It's nice and crisp. There's no flash. There's no sink. The moulding is good, although I've got a bit of a nick in that one. If you can see that there, just a little bit of a nick. That's annoying. But yeah, the surface detail is great. Like I say, there's no canning, which you sort of expect there to be some texturing as well as just marking it out, but there isn't any. Then we've got some more bulkheads, which are nicely done with detail on both sides. There is some sink here and here. Then more bulkheads and bits and pieces. Yeah. And there's plenty of rivet detail and bits and pieces like that, so that's all nicely done. And then this, which I'm not sure, is this I think that might be the cockpit floor, mightn't it? And we've got cable runs and bits and pieces going on there. That all looks quite nice. And then we've got these big bulkheads with all this wiring and detail on, which again all looks nice, but I do wonder whether some of these boxes and things would have been better as separate items to crispen up the detail, and you could have spherical things to go on. And at this scale, it almost feels a bit disappointing that you've just scaled up a 1/48 way of doing it when you could have used the 1/32 scale to do something differently and further push the level of detail that you get. But it might be hardly seen and therefore not worth it, I'm not sure. But there's nothing wrong with what we've got. Even where we've got a little bit of sink, it's minor and probably won't be noticeable. It certainly isn't going to be easy to sort out. Doable though, I guess. Sprue H now, and we have 2 of these because it's dealing with engines and bombs largely, and this particular one is pretty warped. Not that I think it's going to affect the parts too much, I don't think, but yeah, it's bent like a banana. It has roughly about 11 centimeters difference between the center point and the ends, so it is very bent. But looking at the parts, I don't think that's going to make much difference. If it's going to affect anything, it's going to be that. Right, okay, so what have we got? We've got propellers, we've got the guns there, which are quite nicely done, but they're not got open ends, which is a bit disappointing. When they do so much slide moulding, they could have slide moulded the ends in, that would have been nice. We've got some small details, we've got the fins there for the bombs, so they're made up from 2 sections to get your 4-sided fins. Then we've got the engine parts, which aren't very nice. Yeah, your piston rods go, these things here, whatever they are, they're full slab-sided rather than being completely round. So they really needed to be individual parts at this scale. That is very disappointing. I mean, that's 1/72 scale approach scaled up. So yeah, that's not doing it for me. Then we've got the engine cover, which has got lots of hex head bolts and detail like that on. Our bombs, they're nice enough. Yeah. And 1 or 2 smaller little details. And I'm guessing this is the mount for the engine. I guess these slip over that. Again, it's a bit chunky and feels like it's lacking detail somehow. You're expecting more. The propeller is a single piece with the sprue gates on the propeller, which again at this scale they could do them separately and have the sprue gates at the end, and you put them in there. So again, what they've done is nicely done, but you've got a lot of seam to clean up, and you've got nubs on the propellers. At least they're not on the thin part of the blade. So take your good stuff where you can find it. Yeah, quite a heavy seam around the end as well. Quite a lot of cleanup on that actually. And then we've got 1 wheel hub, and then we've got this one in foam, which I'm just going to open up and we can have a look at it. Well, how bizarre. How bizarre. I don't know if they've wrapped that in foam because of the pins, maybe. They're worried that the pins might get damaged, or they're worried they hadn't put enough foam on things, but I don't really see a reason to wrap that in foam as against that one. But there, that's 1 set of wheels for, yeah. And then we've got this thing. And they've made that as a single piece with these fixed in 1 position. And why have they done that? It would have been much nicer to have had those in separate panels, so you could maybe have the engine stripped down, or have these separate so you can have them open or closed. It's a bit basic, isn't it? What you've got is nice enough, but what I'm more focusing on now, increasingly as I go through this, is what you've not got for a 1/32 scale aircraft. Okay, sprue M, and we've got, well, that's definitely the cockpit floor, so I don't know what we saw before, maybe the bomb bay floor or roof or something. Got some nice switches on it. Everything's sort of chunky but nicely done. We've got the nose guns there, which are okay. They're not overly detailed, but you're not really going to see them anyway. You're only going to see this bit sticking out of there. Our dials are okay. If we're putting decals down, I suggest we cut them out as individuals and paint it up. But you've got no bezels around any of the dials. You've got these sort of square ones, but you've not got the round ones. So again, that's a bit lackluster. yeah. The nose, and there's nothing wrong with it. You've got sprue gates that are on the upper surface, so you've not got any cleanup on the outer surface, which is a nice touch. And you've got all the rivet detailing and what have you. Yeah, and it's cleanly moulded, so no real issues with that. So that will then mount in the back with those guns mounted on, giving you the required steps and giving you that nose look. And then we've got a part here which has been slide moulded, I think, to get detail on the end, because we've got an opening there to allow the tool in. Okay, so that's where our various control arms are going to go, and that will sit on there, I think, or possibly no, I think yeah, maybe on there, don't know. Anyway, yeah, what we've got is nice enough, but that does look a bit basic, doesn't it? That I'm sure there would have been more detail in there. Sprue G, and we've got some large bulkhead pieces. These were wrapped in foam. Again, I don't particularly see the need for it, but they decided to. There's some delicate little bits on there that I suppose could get damaged. So better that they did than they didn't. We've got, I'm not quite sure what these are, but there's every one of these tabs, we've got sink. So we've got some issues to deal with there. So sink, 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 sink. So all along that, which means we'll lose all the rivet detail on the front. So quite a bit of work to do on that. The bulkheads look nice enough, but I would imagine there'd be cables and things going on, and they've put them on in other places, so maybe there isn't. We've got a 2.5 tailpiece there. Again, all your rivets and panel lines are nicely done. Then we've got, not sure if that's landing gear or parts for the bomb bay. I think it might be bomb bay parts by the looks of it. More sort of bulkheads, and that is the nose wheel landing gear. Pretty sure of that, which has nice little slide moulded opening there. And we've got detail on that. So these are the bomb bay doors. Yeah. So nicely done on the inside, but these which they could have done separately to avoid this, they've moulded them in, and then that's caused sink on everyone. But yeah, what you've got again is nice and crisp. So other than a little bit of sink, no real issues. Right, sprue A, and we've got our fuselage halves, and it gives us a real impression of the imposing size of this model. So again, we've got very nicely done rivets and panel lines. It all seems to be there, and again, no texturing of any note. The sprue gates are all on mating surfaces, so that's really nice. Yeah, I'm just looking for any sink where we've got these sort of things, and I don't see any, so we seem to be okay on the sink front. Okay, we've got biscuit fittings for the wings, and on a model at this scale, that really concerns me why they've not gone with spars, but anyway. And then we've got these little, whatever they are, we've got these little thin little things. I think they are part of the bomb rack, are they? seem to remember from the instructions. There's some nice detail on the inside, so we've got detail, for instance, at the cockpit. There's a number of ribs in the roof there, so I guess we're going to see up. I'm not quite sure. And then we've got a detail around this gunner's position here, and then we've got ribs in the tail. So, yeah. Once again, what we've got is okay, but I'm questioning why we've got all this stuff just moulded in and why we've not got stuff separate to give it better presence and yeah, it's starting to feel a bit lackluster, this, in places. Sprue K now, and we've got lots of little parts on here. We've got a couple of engine mounting points, so I think we put that in first, and the engine gets mounted onto there. But all sorts of small detail parts that go in, and there's not many of them in the grand scheme of things, to be honest. We've got the wheel hubs, we've got bits that go on the outside of the aircraft there. We've got more guns. I think they might be the turret guns, possibly, and they have more detail on them. We've got the little wheel and stuff that goes in the cockpit and various other little bits of detail. The little periscope thing, that's quite flashy. Yeah, bit of flash on some of these parts, actually. Then we've got, not quite sure what they are. They almost look like 70s school bucket seats, but I'm sure they're not. But I'm not quite sure what they are either. Yeah, and then we've got the cushions for the chairs there, which have some texturing on. So that's the first time we've seen texturing in this model. Yeah. All relatively nicely done. I mean, even the scruffy parts, it's just a little bit of seam that's got a bit heavy and turned into a little bit of flash. They're just a bit scrappy, little scrape, and they'll be sorted. Yeah, bit of flash on these parts as well. So nothing major. So we're nearly there. We've got one more sprue and then the clear parts. Right, sprue D, and this is mainly dealing with the engine nacelles that go on the wing. So we've got some really large parts here. So we've got some, what I think must be internal bulkheads there. And then these will be for the landing gear. So sit in these sections here, and then another bulkhead, I think. They've done a nice job of the pressed steel look, although there's quite a bit of, I mean, there's flash on this one. There's quite a bit of seam clean up on the top surface, but that shouldn't be too bad. And nice details on the inside as well. And I don't see any issues with sync on those. So that's lovely. Yeah. Again, lots of panel and rivet detail. All looks fairly nice. Yeah, fairly straightforward stuff. All done, all moulded with great expertise. All looks good. So finally, our clear parts, and the canopies in this roof section, they look really nice and crystal clear. The distortion is not great, but when you get detail behind it, a lot of that disappears anyway, and so you get a little bit on this curve, which you would have had on the real thing, no doubt. These ones, quite a hard shape to do, because you've got the taper and you've got the curve, so that it is pretty bad on those. But again, with my hand there, it looks a little bit chunky. So I've definitely seen better. I've also seen worse. On the flat surfaces, yeah, then they're okay, though they look a little bit distorted, those two lenses. They actually feel a bit lumpy. Whether they're supposed to be like that, I don't know. But yeah, they are definitely, there's sort of a wave in them. But the other bits are nice enough. Yeah, no real worries with that. I thought that was sync for a minute, but it's not. I think it's a bubble inside the plastic. Right, but yeah, nice detail on here in terms of rivets and bits and pieces. It will be easy to make masks and paint that up. So no great issues with that, and it all came nicely wrapped in foam and then further wrapped in bubble wrap. So I can't really complain at that either. So packaging is, as always with the trumpeter companies, is very, very well done. Right then, that is all of our plastic parts. So shall we sum up? Well, there you have it, the Hobby Boss A-26B Invader in 1:32 scale. What's my first impressions? It's a bit of a mixed bag for me, this one. When you buy a 132 craft aircraft, for me at least, and I'm guessing there's other modelers there that share that sort of view, you buy the larger scale so that you can get more detail. And I'm not sure that this kit delivers that. In fact, I'm fairly sure it doesn't really. What you get is nice enough, but it feels a bit lazy somehow. So let's just go through this process. Instructions, really nice and clear, easy to follow. Don't necessarily agree with all the flow of the instructions, particularly putting the wings on after you've built all the detail up on it, which I think is a bit balmy. But yeah, in the main, the instructions are clear and they'll get you from A to B, but I wouldn't necessarily build it in the way they suggest. Paint instructions, difficult for me to know whether they are accurate or not, but they appear to be not bad. The only thing I'd say is there was no detail at all around these different paint options they gave you and decals, so you don't know what you're building and why, and that's disappointing. I'd expect them to at least say what the year is and what the location is of the paint scheme they're offering at a very least, but they don't do anything. Decals, okay, once again, but far too few. There is no way that there isn't stencils all over this thing. So again, lazy. It's just not bothering, which is disappointing. The plastic itself is well moulded. The trumpeter, the Hobby Boss trumpeter, they do a good job of moulding in the main. There's a nice level of slide moulding to get details in there, and then strangely there's other things that they could have slide moulded that they haven't. Yeah, maybe they felt it was just too thin to do it. I don't know. But So what they deliver you is very nice, but as I noticed throughout the review, there's no actual texturing of the skins or anything like that. It's just the shape with the pattern on it, and that's it. So again, that feels a little lazy to me. Unless, of course, all of these were perfect and they didn't have any stress skins on the Invader ever, then in that case, they've done a nice job, I suppose. So, yeah. The other issue with the plastic for me, other than we've got some sink in some places, which, again, some of that is a bit laziness, because if they'd put those clips in as separates, you wouldn't have had the big thick plastic there that's made it sink. So again, a little bit of shortcutting and not being bothered. But there's quite a lot of chunky moulding going on, and it's cleverly done, but at the same time, you could have done those as separate parts and offered a higher level of detail. And I think that's my biggest issue with this. The level of detail could be even better if they'd broken the parts up into more. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of lots and lots of parts for the sake of it, but I am, at this scale, looking for a model that allows the modeler to create something detailed. And what they've done is a lot of how do we mould this into one to save cost. And this is £145 in the UK, and that is not £145 worth of model in there. So that's a bit disappointing. And then photo etch, what they've done is nice enough. Tyres really want replacing. They're not wonderful, but they're not dreadful. But again, it's a bit lazy. Now, this is my first Hobby Boss model, so I don't know if this is the standard or they just had a really lazy session with designing this one. But more and more I'm seeing from the trumpeter companies when they bring out models that they're getting dumbed down and that they're doing less and asking you to pay more for that less. I've certainly seen it in their ships. In the Scharnhorst that I'm building now, definitely you get a lot less than you got a few years back with the Bismarck, for example. So it's very much a case of what they've done is good, but it's more what they've not done that's the issue. Now, when I first mentioned that I've got this at the Telford Model Show back in November, and I showed it off on Table Talk and said, look, I've got this. One of my subscribers said, well, the Hobby Boss model of the Invader is as much a model of is as much the Invader as a pig is a horse. So apparently it has some major issues in terms of, I believe it's even got incorrect engines. So I don't know anything about the Invader. What I can tell you is what I've seen in the kit. But I believe if you want to build an accurate model, you've got your work cut out for you. Also, there's no rigging plan or anything like that. So the whole thing is just a bit lackluster, and it's absolutely not worth the money. And I don't really say that very often, but I predominantly build Tamiya and Airfix aircraft, and at any scale, they are massively far superior to what we've just looked at. So, yeah, I've got to say, this isn't one I'm going to be building. This is one that I'm going to be selling. So, yeah, definitely not a kit for me, but was really interesting to go through it. But I think probably quite an easy kit to build. There's never really issues with the fit of trumpeter stuff too much. But yeah, it's a bit of a lazy model, and it's not one for me. Well, if you were thinking about getting an Invader, there you go. You know what's in the kit. You know what you're in store for. Thanks for looking in. You enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now. Hi, and thanks for watching. You can support the channel by hitting the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you don't miss any content that I put out.
Model Kit Stuff is a self-funded channel, and I don't do membership or Patreon or buy me a coffee. So if you'd like to further donate to the channel and ensure the cameras keep rolling and the content keeps coming, then you can consider making a donation through my PayPal. You'll find a link to that in the text below. You enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you soon.